places left.
Beide muss das mal beruhigen. Wir klären das dann alle gemeinsam und zusammen an. Weil jeder alles falsch versteht.
Bei der nächsten bleibst du dann hier unten, oder?
Ja,
Okay, probably I think we should get started. Okay, so it's 3 minutes. We are not going to be like 3 minutes looking at ourselves. Okay, so nice to meet you, everyone. I'm José León. I'm coming from Spain, and I'm going to introduce a bit myself, so you know my background and why I'm here and what do I do. Okay, so I started working, well, actually with Delphi 1, as many of you, okay? And in 2006, I started working for Borland then. I went to Scotts Valley, and I started working at Delphi for PHP. I don't know if some of you remember that product that was released by Borland some years ago. And I was working on that for 4 years until 2010. And then Embarcadero offered me to buy the product, the intellectual property of the product, and become an employee. And this is when I started to create the Spanish branch of Embarcadero. Okay, I had a lot more hair in my head back then. Okay, so you know I grew the team up to 100 people there. We were not only working on Delphi 4 PHP, that was later renamed to HTML5 Builder, but also on RAD Studio. I was responsible for RAD Studio ID, but also for other Embarcadero products about databases and so on. Okay, so that was until 2016. I don't think I need to tell you what happened. Okay, but anyway, after a couple of years, I was contacted by Bruno. Hey. You know, we are having some ideas about expanding the capabilities of TMS WEB Core, and you know, I know that you have been working on IDE stuff and so on. So this is where we came up with the idea of creating this product that I'm going to introduce you, okay, which is basically enabling Visual Studio Code to RAD development in the way we all know here. Okay. So this presentation is divided in 2 parts. The first one is about introducing Visual Studio Code, which is a potentially new environment for you. And then it's about introduce you the way we have been getting all the ideas and the technology and the way you are used to work on RAD Studio into Visual Studio Code. Okay, and also explain you why we did it, okay, so you get the idea. It's not, again, this is an introduction. There is many other things, okay, but in any case, there is a trial available that you can freely download. You can play with it, no cost at all, okay, so feel free to do it, okay. So this is what I was talking about, okay. This is a familiar RAD environment. If you are a Delphi guy, you will see this and you instantly recognize all the pieces that you are used to use on a daily basis. That is the form designer, the tool palette, the structure panel, the object inspector, so that way you are not afraid to use a new thing because it's very familiar to you. That was the main goal, but we are not limiting ourselves to what RAD Studio is able to do. Okay, it's a new environment that I will explain that later. Is open source and it has many capabilities that RAD Studio doesn't have. So we are not limiting ourselves. Hey, this is the way RAD Studio does this thing. So we just can't do that. Okay, we are not thinking that way. Okay. So what it is TMS WEB Core for Visual Studio Code? It's an extension of Visual Studio Code. That is, if you get Visual Studio Code and you install it, there are many things that can be done. It's like Open Tools API that you can expand Visual Studio Code through extensions, and this is what we have been doing at TMS with TMS WEB Core for Visual Studio Code. Expands the capabilities of Visual Studio Code, so you can create this kind of applications using Pascal and interacting with the web. Okay. Later I will perform a demonstration about all the HTML and CSS capabilities, things that you cannot actually do with RAD Studio. Okay. Okay. How many of you are creating web applications? And what are you using now? TMS WEB Core? Okay, in RAD Studio.
New in web development.
Okay. So that's the goal. I mean, many of you have a lot of experience creating desktop applications using Delphi technology, the RAD environment. So TMS WEB Core, let alone Visual Studio Code, but TMS WEB Core in itself leverages that knowledge into web technology with the lowest learning curve as possible. That is the goal. Okay. So again, this is not like a competition against RAD Studio. You are developers. In the end, you need to have tools to do the job. Okay, it's not. We are not competing with RAD Studio. That would be stupid. Okay, the goal is to provide you an extra tool that you can use in different environments. Okay. Why we did it? This is, hey, you already have RAD Studio. You have TMS WEB Core inside RAD Studio. So why, spend all that time and money and investment into a different product? Well, the first thing is that Visual Studio Code is cross-platform. This is very important because, for example, this is a Mac, and if you are used to work in a different environment, Visual Studio Code can run almost anywhere. That is macOS, Linux, Windows, but also in web. There is another presentation I have tomorrow about remote development with Visual Studio Code that I will show you how this runs on the web. Okay. Why is that possible? Because Visual Studio Code is written using web technologies. Actually, it's written in TypeScript, okay, and it's able to run on browsers, on any operating system that you can get a JavaScript engine on. Okay, and this is very important because at this moment you are locked on Windows 32-bit, okay, which is also a handicap, and there is not such limitation with Visual Studio Code. Okay, I have forgot to add here a point that I was reminding on the previous presentation by Matthias. Is about high DPI. Forget about high DPI. There are no issues about high DPI. You can use any modern monitor or two monitors with different DPIs. That is not a problem. And not even also with TMS WEB Core. TMS WEB Core is web-based, and in the web world, you don't care about DPIs. Okay, it will work no matter what. Okay, that is a nice thing about using web technologies. So when you use Visual Studio Code on a desktop machine, because it's written using web technologies, all that is wrapped using Electron. Electron is like an engine that allows this kind of web applications to run natively, more or less, in a desktop machine. This is something that you could even do with TMS WEB Core. You can create Electron applications, and a similar technology is Miletus. I don't know if you have known about that from TMS, that wraps that web application into a desktop application. Okay, It's very lightweight. At this moment is 120 megabytes in size. You can compare the size of RAD Studio and this. Of course, it's not the same again, but that means that you can, it's very easy to install. It doesn't add much burden to your machine. It's very, very fast, especially if this is a Apple Silicon machine, ARM based, so it runs very, very fast. You can also check with Holger if you grab a coffee with him. He has a Mac Studio Ultra with 128 gigabytes of RAM. It's a monster machine, and Visual Studio Code is instant. Okay, if you haven't tried one of these machines, I recommend you at least to play with it before buy it, and probably if you test it, you will buy one. Okay, it's like a big jump in technologies coming from Intel processors is quite fast. Okay. Also, the next topic is about the web-based form designer. We have a surprise for you. You know that on Friday there is a lab session. That is a bit of a secret. We will show in there some kind of developments. But in this case, why this topic is important is because in Visual Studio Code we are in a web application, so we can get all the benefits from being in the web world. At this moment in TMS WEB Core in RAD Studio, you are in a VCL-based form designer, so all the controls are Windows 1. Okay, so if you need to render some CSS, some HTML, some JavaScript, you cannot do it. Okay, so you are getting some kind of different experience between design time and runtime. Okay, it's not that what you see is what you get experience. This is what you will get with Visual Studio Code. Okay, actually you can feed HTML templates, CSS. We are going to make some tests here with some CSS, so you get the idea, because you are now in the web world. Everything you see on the designer is going to get into runtime and vice versa. Okay? Again, it's fast, very, very fast, and extensible. I will explain it later. The marketplace, which reminds me a lot of the good old days of Delphi, that you had these pages where thousands of components can be found. Now it's not that way, but you have TMS, okay, to buy components. But that that feeling where there is a lot of extensions and there is a nice community working on that, you can get that using Visual Studio Code. Okay, and then it's open source. I'm going to be clicking here. Sorry, I need to stop this one. Okay, this is GitHub, and this is the repository of the source code of Visual Studio Code. You can download the code, the full source code. You can rebuild it, you can inspect it, you can contribute to it, you can add translations, you can fix bugs, you can do whatever you want according to the license. Okay, but that also is a nice confidence that if you are using that product, you are not going to be left behind. It's not closed source and it's depending of Microsoft in this case. Okay, and there are also like forks that do different things. So this is nice thing about this project. It's not only because it's free that it's not going to cost you any money. That is also nice. But it's open, so you are not going to be left behind if something happens with the product. Okay. I'm going to be okay. Next one, in order to install it, you can go directly to codevisualstudio.com. Okay, I'm going to be, I don't know exactly why the monitor is not changing. Okay, so if we go there, okay, you will see that it's pretty easy to install. There are no licensing involved, no machine count, or that kind of tricky stuff that you may be used to. Okay, and here you have all the platforms that you can download it. Okay, you see open on web. This is something that we'll explain on the other session, so don't forget, don't miss it tomorrow. And as you can see, you can get for macOS universal. You know that in Apple Silicon, you can get universal binaries that actually contain two binaries. One is for the Intel processor, and the other one is for ARM. Okay, so and depending on the machine, it will run one or another. This is the universal, but you can get to other downloads. Okay, and here you see is the Apple Silicon one. Okay, so you just get the ARM-based one. Okay, and then for all the flavors of Linux and of course Windows. Okay, that's the nice thing, that no matter where computer you are going to be using, you get exactly the same environment, which is familiar to you, and so on. Okay. Okay. Now about the release schedule. Okay, you have listened to Matthias about next versions, what includes every version. Visual Studio Code, every single month you have a new release. Every single month. How cool is that? I mean, if there are issues, are going to be fixed. They also release like fixes for big things. You know, if there is some big issue, you will get like the next week you will get a release. Okay, so but you are confident that every month you are going to get new value, new features, bug fixes. You know, so the pace that they are moving on is amazing. I'm going to be browsing the updates, and it's a joy for me. Every month for me it's like, hey, there is a new release. I'm going to be browsing these updates, and the way they are communicating what they are doing is amazing. Now we are going to see it. But also there is a version that is called Insiders. Okay, that is what is actually on their repository. Every day they build a new build, and you can play with it. Okay, so you can test everything that they are doing on a daily basis. So again, you are like part of the project. Okay, so it's quite nice that you can test anything that is being built on a daily basis by the community. Okay, so let's check about the. This is the release notes. They have this format, and here on the left you have like all the, as you can see, is every single month they have one of these, and again it's like a magazine that you can read because it's very very nice to read it. And here you have like an overview of all the things that they are doing. Okay, this could be like 1 year of updates for Embarcadero to be doing this, and they do it on a month. This is because they are also integrating changes from the community. So if you're a developer, you can contribute yourself with anything, and if that's okay, they integrate it. Okay, and then if you browse, okay, it's very well done. They are doing like animations, so you can see exactly how a feature works. A lot of screenshots explaining. Okay, so again, it's very entertaining, I will say. Okay, so you can get a nice idea of how that works. And about updating, there is an auto update system, so you get notified when there is a new version, and you can install it or not. And again, and you don't lose any kind of configuration. You don't need to install packages and all that stuff. Okay. Okay. More things. Okay. Oh yes, the marketplace. Now it's time to check about the marketplace. Okay. Marketplace. Okay. So this is the marketplace for extensions. These are extra capabilities that you can add to Visual Studio Code. I would say that 80% of them are free in the pure sense of the word. Most of them are also open source, so you are confident that what you are installing is nice. Okay, and some of them, like TMS WEB Core, have some kind of trial or license that you can try it out. Okay, and if you check here, for example, this one has 1 million installs. 1 million. Okay, again, this remind me, the good old days of Delphi, where there were like Torres and this kind of pages or Delphi pages that you can get these components. So these are our plugins for your IDE, and for example, if you browse this one, you will get here, Okay, for example, this extension, what it does is provides you a way to get these kind of images. Okay, so you can select a portion of your code and then get a nice image with this kind of drop shadow, this coloring. Okay, so if you are writing documentation, writing blogs, okay, you can use it. And this is totally compatible with TMS WEB Core for Visual Studio Code because it's using Visual Studio Code. Okay, so and again, this is free. Okay, this is quite cool if you are, for example, sharing code with someone. Hey, here is this piece of code and it looks great. Or again, if you are blogging or whatever. Okay, there are other extensions. I will say, for example, most popular, Python. Okay, Matthias was talking about Python. This has 85 million installs, so there should be a lot of people developing Python code again. And this is free, and this comes directly from Microsoft. Okay? Usually this kind of language extensions, what they do is to provide capabilities for Visual Studio Code to be able for you to write or to program in different languages. Python, C#, you name it, TypeScript. TypeScript support is already built in when you download it, but they have expanded like the Open Tools API, we can name it that way, so you can do almost anything with the IDE. Okay, this is what we have been able to use for TMS WEB Core. Okay, so let's see a general overview about the. This is the first time you install Visual Studio Code. This is what you get. You get like a welcome page. Again, this is familiar to you. It's not exactly the same, but from here, what you can do is to open recent documents or create new files. And there are things like walkthroughs that extensions can contribute in order to guide you through different functionality. And here on the left is where you can open folders, open remote repositories. But I will say that the important thing is about this area. Now I'm going to switch to a live version of Visual Studio Code so you see what I'm talking about. This could be different to the way you are used to with RAD Studio, because this looks similar to in Linux, in Ubuntu, where you get the dock, where you can switch the active application. This will be like a dock and changes or switches the context where you are working. Okay, I'm going to be switching out to Visual Studio Code. Okay. Well, this is the actual code of the web form designer. I'm going to close it. I'm sorry, I don't have my glasses. So. Okay. So this is what I was highlighting on the previous slide. If you switch here, for example, this is about the search pane. Okay? You on the left have, this is like the finding files functionality in Delphi. Okay? And you can replace from there. This is the repository interaction. This allows you to interact, for example, with Git. Okay? So some of you use some kind of version control like Subversion, Git. I guess everyone, right? Who is not using it? Nice. Okay, so you can directly interact with that. You don't need like an external client. If you are performing like easy, like pull, push, commit, and that's it. You're not like merging branches all the day and so on. You don't need any extra tool. Okay. If you need it, there is an extension which is called Git Lens. That is an extension of Visual Studio Code that provides extra capabilities to that. Okay. And here is where this, I will show more on this later, is about running and debugging your applications. And finally, this is about the extensions. Okay, this pane is the same, or provides the same functionality that we have seen on that web page, but directly through the IDE. You can see it as a get it, something similar. From inside the IDE, you can install your extensions. For example, if you type TMS, if you type TMS, then you are searching for all the things that TMS has there. And here you have TMS WEB Core. I'm going to be doing that on a separate virtual machine. Okay, and this is the number of downloads that we have. Okay, it's not the same as Python, as you can see. Okay, so please help us to reach the 3,000. Okay, you can download it. Okay, every click is important, but you can install it directly from there. Okay, and TMS WEB Core is actually an extension pack. If you install it, it installs OmniPascal, which provides the LSP functionality about code inside, the syntax highlighting, all that functionality for Pascal. These ones are for repository. I will show that a bit later. It's about the items that you can create, like new projects. And this is about the Electron support that provides, this is also our package that provides the Electron functionality so you can build desktop applications using TMS WEB Core. Okay. So, next one. Important is to check about, this is important because this is a switch. Again, I'm also a die-hard Delphi user, so these are the things that when I moved to use Visual Studio Code, I found a bit challenging on concepts. Okay, is that all the commands there is a tool palette or a command palette that you can search for them. There is something similar in RAD Studio about ID inside. This could be that one, but this is most used on Visual Studio Code. If you want to execute a command, you usually use this one. Okay, so how can you use it? Depending on the desktop or the operating system you are, there is a combination, but a key combination. But on macOS is the command P. Sorry, the uppercase command P. Okay, and here you can start searching for what you want to do. Open a file. Okay, whatever you think is filtering, and there is a huge list of actions. Don't get overwhelmed about that because this is normal. I mean, there is a lot of functionality, but searching for that, you can find whatever you are looking for. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to be just doing this because it's a pain to switch. Okay. So now what we are going to do is I'm going to fire a virtual machine. Okay. And I'm going to be installing TMS WEB Core so you can see how easy is that. Okay. And what we are going to install is a trial version. Then I'm going to disconnect so you don't see my password for my TMS account and connect again so you are enabling that version. Okay. So, okay, I'm going to be using this Windows machine. This is a machine I have for testing. Okay. Okay, it is telling me, hey, you need to go to Windows 11. Okay, and here I have Visual Studio Code. I'm going to see if I need to, I need to revert because this is already installed. Actions, revert. Okay. Okay. So again, this is Visual Studio Code. Okay. And then if I switch to extensions, this is where I can search for TMS. Okay. And installing it is as simple as to click here. Okay. You don't need to do anything else. And this is downloading all the extensions from the extension pack and is installing them on the machine. You don't need to browse any web page. You don't need to do anything. Okay. That depends on the speed of internet. I don't know if this hotel is quite fast or not. Okay. Also, I invite you to add some reviews. This also helps. Okay. Usually people post comments when things are not working properly. If things are working properly, no one is telling anything. Okay. So once installed, you will get here a new option. This is what I was explaining you before. Okay. Now it's installed. Okay. And this is where we provide a similar functionality or a similar concept of what you can get in RAD Studio about all the commands. I'm going to be switching this one so I can get more space. Do you see? Are you able to read properly, right? It's okay? Okay. Okay, so through here you get all the commands that we are adding. There are more, but these are the most important ones. Okay. And for example, in order to create a new project, which is what we are going to do now, is simply use this one on the new section, create new project. Okay. And this is the repository. Again, this is all web technology. I have created that using TypeScript and so on. Okay, this is all web. And this repository, the plan was to be able to expand that in the future. So if we have more technologies, we will be able to add more items to that. Is something that we can extend easily. But for the sake of this presentation, we are going to create a new web application. You just click here and click next. Okay, and in this screen, you see that you are going to create a TMS web application. The language is going to be Object Pascal, the programming language. The platform is going to be web, that is, that application is going to be running on the web, and it's an application. Right? If you go back, you can filter and say, hey, I want to create a package. So you can create a component package in the same way you are doing in RAD Studio. You can create your own components also. And you can, for example, create applications for Windows. You have two types, the Electron application and the MyLetus application. This is what I was explaining you before. You can do that directly using Visual Studio Code. So, for the sake of this presentation, let's create a web application. This is the default name of the project. Again, dproj. This is important because projects you create here with Visual Studio Code, you can move them to RAD Studio with TMS WEB Core, of course, and vice versa. Okay, we have been respecting all the formats, the dproj, the DFM, everything, so you can switch back and forth between IDEs without any problem. Then here you select the folder where you are going to be creating your application, and this is about initializing the Git repository. If you have Git on your system, you can initialize that repository, and Visual Studio Code will keep track of those changes automatically. So now we are going to click Create. This is a screen that is a security system that they have on Visual Studio Code because you can work remotely with code stored in different servers. So it's a way for you to ensure that you are trusting what is on that folder. Okay. Okay, and automatically you get, what you get on RAD Studio is new application and then boom, a form. Okay. There is no other, as far as I know, extension for Visual Studio Code that provides this kind of visual functionality, this RAD experience. Okay, this is something that we are doing. Okay, and again, you can drop components inside a form. You can change properties using the object inspector. For example, caption, press enter. Okay, and then you can, for example, double click on the component, and then you are getting the event handler. Okay, I mean, all of you know what this is going to do if I do this. Okay, if I start typing show, I get code inside. Again, it's very, very fast. Then you can choose show message, automatic parentheses, then also code inside for code parameters. Okay. Okay. I guess this sounds familiar to you, okay? Do you think it's scary or unfamiliar? Any? Okay, okay. I think goal met. Okay, I'm going to check about next one because this is a trial version. Okay. Oh my god. Okay. So I have been showing the repository, form designer. The form designer here, okay, it has all the things that you can expect from a form designer. Okay, for example, it has the guidelines. Okay, so you can snap components along the others. Also, there is keyboard support. Okay, so you can, with the keys, you can move controls, you can size them. Okay. Again, we have been paying attention so you feel familiar, and the same keys that you are used to, the same functionality, you can use them. Okay. You can, for example, on the tool palette, you have here all the categories of components. Okay. For example, if you use system or maybe data access, you have here a client data set. There is support for non-visual components in the same way. Okay, this component, when you run the application, you are not going to see anything. It is a component that adds functionality. Okay, and you can search. For example, if I search panel, okay, I get here a panel, and then you can, for example, place components inside, and then here you get all the structure. You can drag and drop components between containers, and in BioJ Inspector you get properties. These properties can be, for example, sets, okay, the anchors one, or if you go to the font is like a complex, like a complex property of type font, and has a style or a size, and you can set this to true and get the size. Okay. I'm going to highlight this later, but everything that you see here is web. Okay, it's not VCL. This is the important thing, that you are seeing, what you are seeing, hey, is the same as in RAD Studio, but it's web, and it runs on every platform where web runs. Okay, so you're not limited. Yeah.
If you decorate here with a bootstrap,
yeah,
it's going to be looking the same here?
Yeah, that is demo part 2.
Okay.
Okay, we are going to be adding manually HTML and CSS, so you see how those changes reflect here. Okay, which is something that you at this moment you cannot do on RAD Studio. But if you attend tomorrow to the lab session, I cannot say anything else. Okay. Okay. So again, the goal is that you feel familiar. You have many years working with a tool. There is no sense. It makes no sense to change things that, you know, we have been, or we know for sure that are working. We are productive. We have our business based on that. Of course, there are many different ways to do things. Okay, probably even better ways, but you know, it will make no sense to change that. Okay. So now what we are going to do is part 2, events, Code Inside. I have been showing that. One highlight about Code Inside. Okay. So for example, if you browse here, for example, put the mouse over the object, you get where it's located, or here, web form. Okay. Shows you the unit where it's located. If you right click, then you go to definition. This is like control and mousing over and go to the definition. Then you go there, and then you have the source code of TMS WEB Core. Okay. We have not activated this copy, so this is a trial. Okay. If we run this application, you click here on the run. You are switching context. You are now going to be running your application, so you click here, and then you click here on run. Okay. So you will get this screen. TMS needs to get money, of course. So this is the way to do that. And you have several options. Of course, the default one is to buy a license. That will be great. But you can get a trial license. The difference between a trial license and a regular license is there are a few things. First, you don't get like the full source code of TMS WEB Core. and you don't get debugging capabilities. We are going to see how to debug an application here. You don't get that, okay? And then your running application will get like an AG screen when it's open the first time. Hey, this is a trial application, okay? So what I'm going to do is to activate existing license, and this is why I'm going to be disconnecting. And here you get a prompt where you get to enter your email and your password. Okay, I'm going to be doing that offline. I hope the recording is not screwed by this. Okay, I'm going to put my glasses on. I have here my license code. Okay. 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 So this is what you will get once you activate your license. Okay. And this is the running application. This is what we were doing on the web form designer. This is the application with the font that we were using. And when I click here, I get this show message. This is the alert of browsers doing that. Okay. So what we can do is to actually debug this. Okay. For that, what we can do is to click here on the cutter. It's the same concept. We click here and then we get there a breakpoint. Okay. This is the breakpoints window where we have a list of breakpoints we can enable, disable. This is more or less the same. And now if I run my application, I'm going to be putting this side by side so you see how this works. Okay. Okay. If I click here, then it stops there. Okay. If you already know TMS WEB Core, you will see that doing this in RAD Studio, you cannot do that in RAD Studio with TMS WEB Core. You need Chrome in order to debug. Okay. Come to the Friday session. Okay, Friday morning session. Okay, we have more news about that. But in any case, with Visual Studio Code, there is a built-in debugger with for JavaScript applications, JavaScript-based applications, and here you can add watches. For example, you can say here add to watch, and here on the watch section, you get to see all the information about that, or you can click here and see sender caption. Okay, I'm going to be expanding this. Okay, this is a test, and you can step over and the usual stuff. All that built in the same ID, and then I can continue the execution, and then the debugger is showing what is expected. Okay, so again, the experience and your workflow, your daily workflow of putting components on a form designer, adding events, running, debugging, everything is covered. That circle, that productivity circle is provided by Visual Studio Code. Okay. Any question before we move to HTML stuff?
Is it also possible to use a form inheritance and everything? Like
Yes.
You use it in Delphi,
Yes.
and you can also have the forms included in another form, like in Fireball, you can embed the form in another form.
Yeah, you have frames, like the T-frame. So you can create T-frames and have like a piece of UI that you are going to be reusing. And if you change the frame, that piece is going to change everywhere, okay, as expected. And also here you have highlighted the inherit element, so you can create a hierarchy of forms and get the experience that you are used to on RAD Studio. It works exactly the same, and we are respecting all the format of inherited forms, so you can go RAD Studio back and forth, no issue.
So that you can change the parent of a component and that you use them embedded in another.
Yeah, and you can revert to inherited. All that functionality is done. Yeah. That was not present on the first version of the product because it's quite complex. It's I spent probably like 4 months in order to come up with all that functionality because it's quite complex. So we decided to leave it out of the first release of this product. But I think we did it like 2 years ago that we implemented it. Okay. So I think now it's time for that. I'm going to be checking, events code inside. So in part 2 it's about running debugging, and now it's time to see about CSS and HTML. Okay, so I'm going to be stopping this. So I'm going to be showing the form designer, closing this and this. Okay. So if you check here about the structure of TMS WEB Core project, you have here every unit, apart from the pass file and the DFM file, has an HTML file. Okay. If you edit an HTML is like a first-class citizen in Visual Studio Code. There is code inside support. There are extensions that work with it. You can write HTML, no problem. Visual Designer in RAD Studio that is based on Internet Explorer, you don't have that anymore. Okay. So I'm going to be putting this on the side. And in TMS WEB Core, if you edit the HTML, okay, I mean the goal of this HTML is that if you add content here, it's going to be part of this form. For example, I'm going to be adding here a paragraph. Sorry for the glasses. This is a test. Okay. Then if you see here at the top left, you are getting the HTML. Okay, so we are going to play with it and we are going to be adding styles. We can add here a big font style. Okay, and then again, first class citizen, code inside, no problem. Font size, and I'm going to be doing 28 pixels. Okay, and now I can add this style to the paragraph and say class equals to big font. Okay, so again it changes real time, so you see the changes, and then you can change the color, red. Okay, the editor has this kind of goodies. I love this code editor, and you can make any changes to it. Okay, and then changes the style. But TMS WEB Core, what the Bruno and his team has been doing is that, for example, a TMS control has a property that is called element class name. If you drop down this, you see here the big font that we are writing there. So this concept of two-way tools, that is code that interacts with the designer and vice versa, this is full supported. If you change this, then the button, in this case, or I can choose any other control, uses that style. So if I add here, for example, font weight, and I say bold, okay, everything changes at the same time. So that saves a lot. The typical customer, hey, I want this text in red. Right. Okay, so no problems. Okay. So this is about HTML, and again, any HTML that you put on that form is going to be fed into this form. So that works with HTML templates that you can download from the internet, or any fancy stuff, and then you add the dynamic part of that page using the TMS WEB Core components. This is the whole concept. You don't need to be an HTML graphic designer. Okay? That is like a separate profession. If you are a developer, you focus on the functionality of your application, but the UI can be done by someone else. Okay?
One question.
Yeah.
What is with HTML if I inherited a form? I have two HTML files. And what is the difference in the HTML? Usually what it does is to merge everything in the same. In the end, an inherited form, what it does is I have a base form, and the inherited form, what it does is to alter the base properties or to add new components. This is what inheritance does. Okay? So for HTML, it's the same. If you had a base HTML, if you add a new HTML, that will be added to the document. I need only things in the body tag.
Yes. In the case of HTML, the best thing to do is to use the base and to put HTML on the base.
If you are doing different things, then use frames. Okay. Here you see the frames.
Frames don't have HTML.
Yeah, have HTML also, but it's a piece. It's like a panel, but has different containers inside, and you can reuse them. Okay. The frame, the concept is more like a panel of reusable components that you can place anywhere. Okay. So if you want to reuse that, it's better to use frames. Okay. Because you are isolating a piece of UI. Okay.
But I will reuse the HTML too.
Yes, the frame has its own HTML, and that will add it in the area.
In the IDE, in the RAD Studio IDE, there's no HTML on a frame.
There should be. There should be. I would.
No.
No? Who is there? Who is there?
Holger.
Sorry. We need to check. We need to check about that.
Yes, I need only forms because I need the HTML.
In any case, if you put an HTML on the base form where you are placing frames, the frame can use the styles or any HTML that is contained on the base HTML. Okay? Because in the end, it's about composition. What you are doing is composition, both through inheritance or using frames. It's about what is going to be rendered on the browser. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. So I think now it's time. Yeah, it's 15. Now it's time for questions, I think. Okay. Questions you have?
Can I use external JavaScript libraries like AG-Grid inside this web core?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm going to be closing this. Okay. For example, one of the things about there is a lot of articles. Holger, do you remember the name of the guy that is writing all these articles about integrating JavaScript libraries? Andrew, I think. Andrew. Yeah. There is a lot of articles about that, and you have some of them here. For example, the T-Web Google Chart. This is a JavaScript library from Google about charting. And TMS, what they have done here is to wrap that into a Delphi container, so you can access this functionality through properties, methods, and events. Okay, and it's quite easy in order to do it. These articles are very, very good because they explain you the process in order to wrap and to reuse that functionality. Okay, there is a lot of if you browse here, npm.js, this is like the ultimate repository of JavaScript functionality. Okay? And you can use these libraries in TMS WEB Core applications.
Everything of this in NPM.
Through a wrapper. You need to write the wrapper. Yes.
But I can customize it on my own.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this is the nice thing about TMS WEB Core, that it's not only about, hey, you are like locked in a vendor framework. That is not the case. I mean, you can expand this framework through, there are millions, I would say millions, of JavaScript libraries ready for you to use, to do all kind of things. WebSockets, graphic, components even, so.
Can you use FNC components?
Yes.
On VS Code?
Yes. I don't have them installed here. No. But yes, you can use them. Yeah.
You build a PBA that you run on an Android device.
Sorry?
When you build a PBA that you run on an Android device, can you then also call intents? Can you use intent then to, for instance, if you have a scanning device, that you can call the intent to trigger this device?
I will need to check with Bruno about that, because I'm more on the IDE side. I don't know the internals, or maybe Holger knows more about that. But I'm not sure about that. Okay. I mean, it's about Electron functionality or Miletus functionality that allows you to do that. Okay. Through Electron, you can create this kind of applications. Okay.
How does the ID show when you use element ID? We have, for example, a template on Bootstrap. So the only thing we have on the form is 2 edits. And we set it an element ID that matches the HTML. And yeah, it shows the page as it should, but on the ID you just see.
Yeah, on RAD Studio, you are talking about RAD Studio.
RAD Studio,
You don't see any change.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that you are trusting that at runtime is going to work. What you see here is the actual component moves and integrates directly, and you cannot move it, but you can click on it and then you can change properties. Okay. Okay. More questions?
You have this, and I give this layout to a web designer. What must I do? This is ugly. My web designer made amazing. And how put them back?
Through element IDs.
Only
Yeah.
element IDs?
Yeah.
Class names and so on.
I mean, class names is about the styles. Okay. Then you can what you can do later is to use the element class name property in order to change the dynamic components so they look how the designer is expecting to look. Okay. But the goal is that you create the ugly form with the functionality, but you don't care about the UI.
Yes, but web designer give me a
Yeah.
of code.
Yeah, you
What
paste it.
what made?
You paste it here. You paste it here directly. Okay, and you know, as he's telling, it's about element IDs. When you pass this HTML to the designer, you should already have written these element IDs. Okay, a button with an element with an ID, and you link the dynamic control with that ID. Okay, or inputs, any functionality. The form must work already, and then you pass that HTML to the web form designer, and she needs to respect those IDs. They can do whatever they want with that HTML, but respecting those IDs, because this is the link between HTML and TMS WEB Core. Okay. Okay. Another cool functionality that I'm very proud of is something that you cannot do on RAD Studio, which is about the DFM editor. Okay, this is the DFM, and you can do things like, for example, hey, I'm going to be creating here object my button, the web button, and hey, now I have a button here. And then you can say, hey, caption, hello, hey, and then left 10, 100. So you can edit in a two-way tool way the DFM. This is not something you can do in RAD Studio because you cannot see at the same time the DFM on the form. Okay. So you can do whatever you want. Okay. Color, red, I think. Okay. So this is quite cool. These are the things that Visual Studio Code allows us as ID developers that RAD Studio doesn't allow us. Okay. I mean, it's not common to edit DFMs because you cannot do it at the same time. So we have been enabling this, and all that is related with visual form inheritance. I mean, because when you do this, you need to reload the form. There is a lot of hidden things in the background. Okay, and again, once you move this, then my component gets all the properties here, my button. You know, all the default properties. This is what I was writing, and now it's completed. Any change I do at design time, here, for example, I change the caption. Okay, you see here the change. Yeah.
What reason could you have if you want to develop in WEB Core to use RAD Studio and not Visual Studio Code?
There is people that is afraid, and the answer to that question is the motivation to have this session here today. You know, there's many people that is afraid to test new things. You know, if you are 20 years using the same tool, new tools are, hey, you know, you're afraid of that, or maybe you don't have enough time. So that was the goal, that shows you the similarities between things, and hey, don't worry, this is another tool. It's not competition. I mean, it's RAD Studio, you have your license, you have your code base for Windows applications, but this is, hey, for web, maybe this is the best tool, better than RAD Studio. But again, on Friday, we're going to help
I
us.
see a wonderful reason for it. We are growing our team and doing web dev, but we were having to buy a Delphi seat for each developer. When they will not do anything on the VCL, they will. Some of our team is only TMS WEB Core, and we have a site license for WEB Core. So
that will be nice feedback for Matthias. Hey, it will be possible to get
he's not here, but basically it's that. So if I onboard 5 new developers that will only work on web, I don't need 5 new developer seats because they are not exactly doing anything in the VCL.
Yeah, and also if are, like younger people than us, okay, I would say it that way. Probably RAD Studio is a bit, outdated for them. Is probably they are using Visual Studio Code at this moment for other things, TypeScript or any other stuff. Okay.
And what would you say in comparison to React.js, for example? This web core in comparison to React.js?
It's similar, but a different concept. In React.js, unless you go through, there are starting to appear like visual designers for React, but at this moment, React development, Vue development, Angular development is typing code.
Yes.
And again, this is, I don't know, maybe in the 90s or before Delphi, we were used. I remember creating Windows application with C++ and writing all the APIs and controlling the messages and so on. So that is React. So when I see these new guys doing that stuff, hey, productivity is not the same.
Yes, but we have how it's called responsive designs most of the time, and then the visual representation is not this.
You can get responsive design with TMS WEB Core.
On design time also.
Yeah, with this designer. Because here you will see the template. Again, this is an introduction on the first presentation we did like before the pandemic. I was showing a full blown HTML template and how you can get this on the. If you feed that on the HTML, you are going to get that in here, because this is web. Okay. And again, if you are using element IDs or you are using the TMS WEB Core responsive functionalities, that is something that Holger is dealing with on his books. Okay, you get the same stuff. In the end, is for example for responsive, if you resize, you want things to move to a different place or change fonts in order to look better. That functionality is covered both by HTML templates and by TMS WEB Core. Okay. Okay.
We have, for example, I think it's on Friday, the last session, is actually that topic, like HTML design, and also with an alternative. What the previous question was, that you don't need to define an element ID for everything, but you can still use Web Core to feed your HTML and work with a web designer that builds the HTML for you. I'll show you another approach that's possible.
At this moment, for example, in React, in order to put a button in a form and React, on the clicking of that button, you need to do a lot of work. Okay, so it's something that you don't need to do here. And for responsive design, there are functionalities that allows you to do that. In the end, it's about presentation. Okay.
That's so the case where I'm working. I design the page in a designer software. Make sure it is completely responsive using Bootstrap. So no code, just purely design.
Right.
And when that is ready, then I import the HTML.
Yeah.
But in RAD Studio, then the few elements like buttons or inputs, I have assigned an ID, and then I go to
element ID. Yeah.
There is a functionality. If you left click on the designer, right click, you say scan, and then it will put elements on the form.
Yeah.
that have an ID. And then you can use this element to add code.
Yeah.
On click button.
Yeah, exactly. That is the workflow. Yeah.
That's the same here?
Yes, exactly the same. But the difference with RAD Studio is you will see your HTML and your components at the form design time, at the design time.
Yeah, but will today, if I do the scan, it will only add the components that has an ID. Not everything. I don't see the full page. I only see the components that are on my page with an ID, and then I can add code.
The components without ID are not seen? The components without ID are not seen on the page? They should have an ID? I don't know. This is something we need to check with Bruno.
No, because I'm not interested. They are just showing things like text or so. I don't need it in the code, so it's...
But are you talking about components?
These components are
But are you talking about components you have on the form designer that you don't want them to be seen?
Yeah, so if I just replace the HTML, the designer, the DMF, stays empty until I call this method, and then it will scan the HTML and add components depending on the type.
Yeah, but here you don't need to scan. I mean, once you paste the HTML, then you can start assigning the element ID, and that's it.
Yes, but they won't exist probably in the DMF.
In the DFM?
DFM, yeah.
And the components?
Yeah.
You need to add them. Yeah.
Yeah, but if I see it on the visualizer, how can I know which components exist and which does not?
Yeah, but one thing is, for example, if you add a button on HTML, that is a HTML button, it's not a TMS button. Okay? So that button that in HTML, you need to create the TMS button on the form designer and link them through element ID.
That is what this functionality scan, or I don't remember the exact name, is doing. It will scan the HTML and create the component for me.
Maybe that is something that they have been adding that I'm not aware of. I will check with Bruno about that. Okay. So basically, it's that to create the components based on the HTML components that you already have. Okay.
You propose the opposite. You first create and you don't care about the positioning and size and so forth.
This is what I will do.
And then you give this to a designer to create the HTML.
This is what I will do because the first thing about an application is functionality-wise. And Holger, finishing. Okay. It's about functionality, that you get things working according to requirements. And design, once you show that to your customer, they are going to be tweaking things. Okay? Hey, I want this in this color or this. I mean, and that is a separate file with a different person, but the functionality is already there. This is the way I will do things, but that doesn't mean that you cannot do things otherwise. That is, create first the design, and once the design is completed, then add functionality to the. This is something that you can do also. Yeah.
I think I need the full controls, or can I put the form blank and make one action list and say, here I have one button, edit field. I see nothing on the form.
Yeah.
It's go to the designer and play only with the action list. And say, okay, button click, I look in my action list and say on click, double click, or I think I don't see what.
I think actions are not, at this moment, are not, as far as I know, Holger can fix me, I don't think TMS will core.
We have an element action list.
Okay.
So you can actually have an action list for different elements.
Element ID 1.
Oh, this one. Oh, okay.
I do is edit field.
This one.
I have no interest on the form. I look only the functionality.
Correct, and that also helps with your frames question, because then you can put that on the frame, and then you have the functionality on the frame, because you can't define the HTML. So. And as said, tomorrow we'll see an example where it all comes together, where we can hook it all up.
Okay, good. So you have this component, element action list. Okay, so with the editor and all the actions. Okay? Okay. So thank you, everyone. We are running out of time. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I didn't want to interfere.
No, sorry for.
No.